This is my personal JavaScript edition of the iconic Snake game, famously preloaded on Nokia mobile phones in the late 90s, rebuilt here with simplified DOM manipulation. Now I will describe the game's core algorithmic concept, after which we will examine the implementation details. The program implements the Snake game using a scene graph architecture, where each segment is a DOM element positioned absolutely within a grid container. The algorithm employs a turn-based movement system, where direction changes are queued as a coordinate keyed instructions in a turn points lookup object. Each segment processes these instructions when it reaches the designated cell, ensuring smooth chain movement without sudden whole snake rotation. Collision detection is performed by comparing the head's grid coordinates against all body segments after movement. The foot placement uses an ejection sampling algorithm, repeatedly generating random positions until finding one not occupied by any segment. Game progression is managed by increasing speed exponentially with score while maintaining a minimum time threshold to ensure playability. The sys object is the centralized configuration and state manager for the entire game. It encapsulates all critical game parameters. The grid size defines the playable area, move time controls the game speed, and score tracks player progress. It also contains the algorithmic data structures, such as the turn points queue that stores pending direction changes and the offset lookup table that maps movement directions to coordinate changes. By consolidating all state into a single object, the architecture remains organized and modular, allowing clear separation between game logic and rendering. The HTML creates a single-page application with a container div holding three main elements: a header for the title, a data element for the score display, and a main element serving as the game grid container. The div ID food inside the grid represents the target for the snake. CSS uses a unit variable based on the viewport size to create a fully responsive layout. The game grid employs absolute positioning for all child elements, snake segments and foot, allowing them to be placed precisely using pixel coordinates calculated from the game's logical grid. The createSegment function initializes a new snake segment object. For the first segment, the head, it sets initial position and direction. For the subsequent segments, it calculates the position based on the last segment's position and direction, ensuring the new segment is placed behind the last one. It then creates a DOM div element, styles it with size and position based on the game's grid system, and appends it to the game grid. Each segment object stores its grid coordinates, movement directions, and its corresponding DOM element. The moveSegment function updates the visual position of the specific segment in the DOM. It takes the segment's index, calculates its new pixel coordinates based on its grid position and the cell size, and applies these values to the element's left and top CSS properties. This function handles the translation from the game's logical grid coordinates to actual screen pixels. The runAsynchronous function contains the main game loop. It repeatedly executes after a delay defined by the sys moveTime, which controls the game speed. Each iteration updates the score display, moves all segments by applying their direction offsets, handles grid wrapping, processes any turn commands at the current position, checks for head-body collisions, and detects if the head has reached the foot to trigger scoring and growth. The loop continues until the game is paused or over. The placeFood function generates a new food item at a random grid position. It uses a rejection sampling algorithm. It repeatedly generates random coordinates until it finds a position not occupied by any snake segment. It then updates the food element's CSS position to place it visually on the grid and records the new food position in the sysFood object for collision detection. The handleKeys event handler processes keyboard input. It toggles pause play state with the spacebar. For arrow keys, it prevents opposite direction turns, which would cause immediate collision, and ignores redundant same direction presses. Valid direction changes are stored in sys turn points using the current head position as the key, creating a queue of turn commands that segments will execute when they reach that position. The onload initialization function runs when the page loads. It calculates the pixel size of each grid cell based on the container size and grid dimensions, set up the initial food element styling, and creates the initial snake segments. This function prepares all necessary components before the game can begin. The core objective was to implement the classic game logic solely through DOM manipulation, using absolutely positioned HTML elements as the game grid without relying on a 2D array for state tracking. The source code is extensively commented to explain each component and decision. You are now encouraged to examine it at your own pace. Link to the file location is in the description. I will scroll the code now. That's all from my side. Be well.